Tim, if when you get a chance, if you can just confirm the YouTube is on. It's not there yet. It's still loading.
Okay, I'll keep an eye on it.
Okay. Looks like it's live on my side. We'll go ahead and get started. All right, so welcome everybody today to the first September event for Hispanic Hackers. It's going to be on a development vehicle for every budget. All right. Would like to start with thanking the Capital Factory. Without them, we wouldn't be able to have the Zoom account and our in-person meeting location. They've been a sponsor for us for at least 3 or 4 years now, and they've helped us out whenever we have questions or need anything. Great place to check out for events that are coming up, and or just a good resource when you have questions and need a mentor. So it's definitely worth checking that out, guys. Today's event, we'll have a short intro. Our speaker is Charles Bibble. Today's event flow is going to be learning how to use a Raspberry Pi as your computer. We're going to discuss different types of machines, operating systems, equipment available, giving you a head start on your next project. We're going to discuss keyboard selection, data management, speed, responsiveness, latency of work and machine, and we'll have a great debate on whether 2 screens are better than 1. I think that they are, but some people may like 1. A little bit about us for Brad, because he's new. We're Hispanic Hackers. We're a group of Austin software and hardware developers, engineers of the Hispanic ethnicity, with the goal to showcase our knowledge and experience and build a professional network for the community. If you're not Hispanic, it's totally cool. We're a great place to get to know Austin Hispanic hacker community. Organizers that are here today are myself and Tim. We're always looking for new people to join and be a part of this group. Some of our goals are to advance the knowledge of technology and space. We have a monthly event featuring topics in software and hardware. We talk about developing career opportunities for our members, connecting with companies, supporting diversity and inclusion. We do whiteboard and behavioral interview practices. We create community in Hispanic community in tech, and we facilitate a space for people to network and make friends. It's all about getting to know people and being social and meeting that next connection. If anybody would like to get involved, please let us know. You can get a hold of us here on Slack tonight. Here on Zoom tonight. You can join our Slack and get a hold of us there. You can find us through the Capital Factory and all the different social medias. We really just love being involved in the community, and anybody that wants to be involved and help out, doesn't matter what your skills are. We just want people to be a part of this group. So before we start, let's take a quick photo. I'm going to stop sharing my screen real quick. Brad and Josh, if you all feel comfortable, feel free to put your camera on. We'll do a quick snapshot, and this is just so that way we can share it with our community, just for social media, stuff like that. Okay.
So
all right.
I'll take a screenshot too, James.
Yes.
All right. So just a regular one. We'll take 2. So if one messes up. All right. When you guys are ready, it'll be in 3, 2, 1. All right. Another one. 3.
Okay.
2, 1.
Perfect.
Cool.
Awesome. I'm going to go back to share my screen. All right. Record to the cloud. All right, we're back. All right. So another thing we do is we do social events. Really, it's just it's a way to get out of tech for a brief second. Let's get to know people. We're open to new ideas. Anybody interested in doing something fun around town, even if all we do is grab a drink or go for a hike, doesn't matter. The goal is just to kind of get out and meet new people and make friends. Our next event is going to be over the struggles before success. So in October, same time, it's going to be probably a hybrid event, and we'll do half in person, half online. We're going to have the board members will be up on stage, talk about the struggles they've gone through to get to where they are now, and then answer any questions that you may or may not have as far as what are some things that we've been through and what are things you can do to get to that job and get to that full-time
James,
position.
do you need me to be the moderator for that? Because since you'll probably be part of the folks speaking, do you want me to moderate? We can set up an offline for that. I'd be happy to help.
I'll let you know.
Okay.
Know. Yeah, definitely. Thanks.
Of course.
All right. And how to find us, guys. So there's plenty of ways to find us. There's Hispanic Hackers Next.Vercel.app, which is our website. It has plenty of information on us. It has the information from all of our past events on it. It's a great place to find anything out about us. You can get us on Slack. You can get us on meetup.com. Connect with any of us there. You can find us on LinkedIn. We have a LinkedIn business page. We have social media. We have Facebook. We have Instagram, Twitter, all of them at Hispanic Hackers. Or you can get a hold of us through the Capital Factory if you need be as well. So there's plenty of options, plenty of ways to do it, guys. And the last thing, does anybody, one thing that we like to do is we like to do announcements. So does anybody have any announcements, wins, things that they want to celebrate maybe for today or this week or even this month? Okay. Anybody know of any upcoming events that they're going to go to or that they're interested in checking out? Maybe this next week or the week after, maybe? No. Well, I do know that there's one event that I'm going to be planning on going to tomorrow. It's called Startup Grind. It's going to be an in-person event. It's put on by I think it's put on by the Capital Factory. Don't quote me for sure, but it's going to be an in-person, and it's going to be on South First Street, just south of the river, where the food trucks are at. I think it's next to the donut place. But I can find the link and share that if anybody's interested in that in the chat. And then other events, I think that's the only one I'm signed up for at the moment. I don't know if anybody else has some events they're signed up for. All right. So I know we have a couple job seekers in the room. If y'all feel comfortable, feel free to share what y'all are looking for, guys. I know it's just a few of us here today, but we can always pass your information along to our Slack channel. And also feel free to share your information in Slack. We have a number of people who are recruiters there and who are working for companies that are looking to hire. So, if you don't feel comfortable today, feel free to share that there. And it's just a great opportunity to just make another connection somewhere, guys. All right. All right. So last thing, guys. Oh, go, yes.
I'm not actually job recruiting or job seeking. Just wanted to make an announcement, something I've been working on. I'm going to post my LinkedIn and the website here on the chat if anybody's interested. I've been taking up a personal project, which is to make a platform for developers to learn Rust and Solana development. It's a relatively new industry, and this is like if you think of a crowdsourced learning platform where we learn and then we contribute back our knowledge back into the group. I think it's a very big industry in the future. Some of the smart money recommends that you follow developers, right? When you're, if you want to know where the future is going. So I've been working on this platform really hard, and if anybody's interested, feel free to check it out. Best way to reach me is probably through the discourse or Discord, or you can also hit me up on LinkedIn. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Tim. I'm gonna check this out. It looks pretty cool. I've heard of Rust. I haven't touched it yet, but it looks interesting from what I've seen. So that's good to know. Thanks. All right. Guys, also feel free to share your LinkedIn link in the chat. It's always good to have another connection. And without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started unless anybody has questions that they want to ask before we get started. All right. Well, then we'll turn it over to Charles, who's going to be presenting today.
Hey everybody, how you doing? So James, do you want to, maybe I'll give a little bit of context about how I settled on the pie and some of the other options, and then you can kind of go through your questions. Does that work for you?
Yeah, absolutely. And also, guys, feel free to ask questions.
Please, yes.
Yeah, please ask questions. If you're interested in something, raise your hand, ask a question. Let us know. We want to definitely answer questions. I know this is a really interesting topic for me. I know Tim was really interested in it as well. So really let us know. We want to learn from Charles. He's been doing this for a while now. Okay.
Yeah, so that's a great way to yeah, it's been about 5 years. I've settled on 3 different options. And that's why I talked, had you title it for every budget. So the pie is really the entry level option. And then I have an iPad mini, and then I have a Microsoft Surface Go. So the cost of the pie all in, just the pie, not the monitors and everything, we'll get to that a little later, is about $100, $150, depending on the quality of the micro SD card that you buy, and the size of it, of course. And this is the Raspberry Pi 4. So do not get anything else for daily use other than the 4. You'll be very sad. The iPad mini is about, so I guess the Pi, maybe with the SD card, it's probably a little bit closer to $200, power supply and everything. The iPad's about $500 if you get the pencil, the mouse, the iPad. And then I'll talk about keyboards and stuff in a little bit as well. And then the Surface is about the Surface Laptop Go. So there's a number of models, just like Apple or any of the other vendors. That's about $700. I use the Surface as my daily driver instead of the Pi, and I'll explain why in a little bit. But I do use dual monitors. I use a Bluetooth headset, and I have a Mateus. It's an aluminum. It looks very much like a Mac keyboard. I'll drop links to all this in the chat at the end of the meeting, and so I'll link on my GitHub as well. I have a whole page on my workstation setup, which of course I'll drop that in. And that, really the Pi or the Surface Go aren't necessarily, I mean, they're, the CPU is important, of course, but the monitors, the keyboard, the mouse, I mean, these are things that, regardless of what you have as your central core, are absolutely critical. So if you don't get those right, you're going to be very unhappy. And that's what I learned is when I'm out and about, I take the iPad. When I'm at home, I've got the Surface or the Raspberry Pi 4. And having the same keyboard no matter where I am, having the same mouse has been really nice. I do have the Apple mouse for the iPad. I highly recommend it. I feel like if you could splurge a little bit, the iPad with like a DigitalOcean server, really an unbeatable combination. Assuming that you have a monitor to plug in. Now, with the iPad, you can only, and as far as I know, unless the latest Pro has changed this, with USB-C, you can only drive one external monitor, and the aspect resolution is a little weird. That's what drove me to the Pi, was to be able to drive 2 monitors, and the Pi 4 is the first one that can do that. I bought the Pi 4 with 8 gigs of RAM. 8 gigs of RAM. That runs to about $80. And then I think the power supply was another $15 or so. And then the SD card, I believe, was $70 for 256 gig, really, really fast. And it makes a big difference. The other option is if you've already got a USB 3 hard drive, you can plug that in to the Pi and just kind of keep everything on there. It's quite fast. I didn't want to. Yes, sir.
So you said you have 8 gigs of RAM. Is that like the limit, or can you have more?
Yes, so that is the highest available configuration you can purchase, and it is fixed at time of purchase. If you purchase a 4 gig, you're stuck with 4 gig. Purchase an 8 gig, you're stuck with 8 gig. They do all have the same CPU. They do all have the same, hardware inputs, outputs, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, the two HDMI ports, mini HDMI to be specific. But yes, the RAM is the main differentiator. Yes, and then you have to purchase the power supply and the micro SD cards separately. And those, you can get. I mean, the Pi Foundation has an official power supply. Don't buy anything else. There's no reason. And then the SD card, buy from a reputable vendor. Be very careful. There's a lot of fake cards out there. I've run into those myself, and it causes you no end of hurt. Or just go with the USB 3 hard drive, right? Go to Best Buy or Walmart, or get a Western Digital, just standard, 1, 2, 3, 4 terabytes, whatever you need. And then the ecosystem, right? Depending on what kind of development you do, I mean, Node, React, PHP, whatever you want, right? It's all there, right? Everything is an app to get away or a Docker pull away, right? So I mean, you can do anything you want on a full Linux system. There's a couple things that don't work if they assume x86. So there's a couple like Java apps that I use that would start up, but then would fail because they were looking for some library or something. That's why I ultimately went to the Surface, because I needed to run some things that and I needed them local. I also do a lot of hardware development, so I couldn't really use a VM on DigitalOcean to control a board on my lab table, right? But assuming that you're doing web dev, sysadmin, this kind of thing, I think a Raspberry Pi is really the best bang for your buck. Now, if you need Windows, okay, you're going to need either a remote VM, or you're going to need an x86 box that can run Windows. I mean, there's no right, but if you're in a pure Linux world, now, of course, I'm sure many of you may have used a MacBook Pro, something like that. I've had no end of issues with everyone on my network that has a Mac, with Brew and trying to get things to run and trying to get Docker Desktop to run. And I mean, it's just giant pain. Just don't do it. I mean, don't get me wrong, the Mac is a great product. I mean, I own every Apple product except a Mac. I own the iPad, the iPhone, the watch, I mean, everything. I'm very big into Apple. They have completely abandoned their desktop market. I mean, it's been very clear. You look at their numbers, all of their revenue comes from mobile. That's where all their investment is going. And that's okay. I mean, I use the iPad for over a year. I still use it every day. I use it when I go out. I mean, I was just meeting up with Tim the other day. I had the iPad with this tiny table at the coffee shop, and it was great. So I think if you could do both, because it's really hard to lug around a Pi with 2 monitors, right? But if you could do a Pi on an iPad, I think you'll really be set. And you can actually just use your iPad, remote it into your Pi too. So you all use, does everybody here use VS Code pretty heavily, I'm gonna guess, in their day-to-day life? So that runs beautifully on a Pi. I used it every day. I wrote an entire book with it, the startup, my startup's handbook. It's a fantastic platform. So yeah, I think that's kind of the context is pick either a low end. Basically what it boils down to is pick a client that will be fast and responsive, but doesn't need to necessarily do everything locally, because you could do so much on a VM remotely for $5 a month from DigitalOcean. I mean, it's just a no-brainer. And you can use VS Code Remote and do everything that way. And for that, I'd say the iPad and the Pi together is a winning combination. But if you only do one, I would go with the Pi. So that's kind of the context over the last 5 years that I've got. Yes, sir.
So I mean, if I get this right, so you take your iPad, the Pi around with you whenever you work in places, or
I do not. I take the iPad.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's strictly like an in-house thing. Does it take up a lot of space, or is it there's wires that come out of it and stuff like that?
No, not at all. It's very small, very compact. It's about the size of maybe 2 decks of cards next to each other and about the same stacked. It sits in a very nice little case. It's just got the two HDMI cables coming out, and then the USB. I have a USB 3 hub that I use with it, and a power cord. So four cables. Really nothing. It's very, very compact. You could they make mounts for it that actually go on the back of your monitor. So it can be essentially a completely invisible deployment. Very small, very compact, very quiet. It does have a fan, but it only runs on a very heavy load. Yeah, it's not like a a big workstation or something. I mean, it's really, really slick.
Charles,
What
I got a
about like
question about-
graphics and things like that? How does it handle that?
So it can drive two 4K screens, one at 60 frames per second, or two at it's basically out of one of those. We do one at 60 and one at 30 frames per second, or of course two at 30 frames per second. Tim, you had a question?
Yeah, I was going to ask about this Pi 400 because
Mhm.
I know it might be a little bit different. Have you used that, or do you recommend that?
Yeah, that's I haven't used the keyboard, right? So that that for me is the main thing, right? If it's not a good keyboard, then it's it's going to be garbage. But I mean, the Pi for guts are the same exact thing. If the keyboard is good, I highly recommend it. I just haven't used it, and I haven't seen any reviews of it because I think they made a very limited number. So that would be like, if you're going to still have your own keyboard anyway, it's probably not worth it. But it is a really cool product. And I've heard I think the keyboard's probably decent, but I don't know if it's using like really good cherry caps or anything like that. But it is a really nice product. Yeah, and in terms of graphics, James, I mean, it's also it's very crisp. It's really, really, really nice. I had no lag. No, I mean, it was very, because it's all solid state, right? There's no spinning rust at all. It's all completely solid state. So everything's assuming that if you're using external drive, of course, a solid state drive. But if you don't, if you just use the SD card, it's pretty fast. I mean, if you're installing a whole bunch of stuff and you're running VS Code and you're doing, I mean, yeah, it's going to slow down a little bit for sure. But that's all I/O. That's not like moving it. Like if you move to USB 3, even just spinning Rust, you do eliminate those I/O issues. But you really only see them if you're doing 10 things at once. Like it was only a little slow when I started because I was installing everything, but day-to-day use was very instantaneous, very all tabbed around, jumped around virtual desktops, all that kind of stuff. I do really like the Surface. I mean, I had looked at it. It's got a touch screen. It's really nice. It's very compact. It's about the size of an iPad, a full iPad. It's running Windows. It's only got 8 gigs of RAM. So I do everything but WSL containers on it. And of course, with a Pi, you don't need any emulation layer. It's all it's all just straight Linux. So you can do Docker, Kubernetes, whatever you want, all completely on there. You have your Git, you have all your your Git GUI. I mean, all this kind of stuff. You have everything. There was a couple apps that were x86 only that hadn't been ported, but I found alternatives, and that's all documented on my setup guide, which I'll link at the end of the meeting. So I think we covered cost. That was the number one. How much does it cost us? Yeah. So just to reiterate on that, the Pi itself is about $80 for the 8 gigs, which I do highly recommend the 8 gigs. Power supply, SD card, you're probably coming out about $200 all in. I mean, monitors, of course, can vary in price, so that's really not in scope. I mean, I have 2 Dell IPS 24s here. I think they were $150 a piece. The keyboard I have is about $90, I think. It compare with up to 4 Bluetooth devices. And then I have the Apple Magic Mouse that I used with it, which I believe is $99. But again, most of that is going to be, the monitors, keyboard, mouse and I do, those are highly personal preference, but the Pi will work with whatever you've got. And I think that also covers number 2, what is the equipment that, one needs to set up? It's basically, yeah, I mean, you plug in the monitors, you'll need a USB keyboard and mouse to start, just to pair the Bluetooth. And then after that, it's pretty simple. I mean, it's got Wi-Fi built in, right? You just select your network, type in the password, the usual stuff. Yeah, is it hard to set up a Raspberry Pi for work? I mean, I don't think so. I mean, assuming again that you're using VS Code, that you're using Docker, that you're using Git, that you're cloning a Git repo, running npm setup, or whatever, right? Flask, Rake, whatever you do, right? Of course, you have MySQL, Postgres, Mongo, blah blah blah, all an app to get away. And I always recommend people use Docker just to make sure they're pulling the right, all that. But yeah. I mean, in terms of, is it hard? It's no harder than any other VM you might use, or Linux system, or even Windows system these days. How much computing power will Raspberry Pi have? I mean, most of it is going to be, like, for example, as VS Code is always compiling the program as you go in order to lint it and give you, it's pretty fast. I mean, VS Code is already pretty efficient. It's just, kind of compiling the little pieces as it goes. Are you going to be able to do 4K renders in 5 minutes like an M1? Well, no, right? Because the GPU in it is nice, but it's not made for heavy compute. But chances are you're going to be pushing that up to the cloud anyway. So as a really nice dev workstation, I think it's great. I think I've done Krita, I've done Blender on it. I mean, it's okay, right? But again, it's just like anything, right? If you just buy a low end MacBook, you get the same results, right? As you go up the hardware, of course, you're going to be able to do more. I always recommend people go with cloud for everything like that, because those vendors are constantly upgrading, right? So what you can buy for $5, $10, $20, $50 a month is amazing. And I'll talk about that the next time I present to this group. I'll discuss how I have selected hardware in the cloud, some of it on premise, how I use it, what the trade-offs are. What are the benefits of using a Raspberry Pi to work from? That's a great question. I think for me, the main thing is just, you can just hold it in your hand. If you ever gotta, go on a trip or something, you're going to be going to a hotel, right? You can just plug it into the HDMI, boom, you're online, right? You've got your entire environment. You don't have to, it weighs absolutely nothing, right? I mean, my Surface weighs more than a Pi. I mean, it's insane, because the Pi is literally the size of a credit card, and maybe 4 credit cards thick. I mean, it is that small and that. I mean, it's almost put it in your wallet, right? It's a full Linux environment, right? Everything is a Docker, Git, clone, whatever away. Yeah, I mean, it's a great platform. It's completely standardized. If it breaks, you just go buy another one. I mean, you hit it with static or something. I mean, you just pop the SD card out, pop it another one, you're back up and running. I mean, it's really, and I mean, hell, at $80, buy 3 of them, right? I mean, there's really, yeah. Yeah, so the iPad. So yeah, day to day, what is it like? Yeah, so man, I use that for, so the Raspberry Pi I used all of this year up until, maybe a month ago. So I started January 4th, and I used it for a really long time. So that's why I'm kind of presenting this now, because I did use it as a daily driver. I wrote an entire book on it. I wrote a ton of code, did this, that, everything, right? Because you can't really know something until you used it for, So the iPad I used for all of 2020, I think late 2019 up to January 2021. And I used it with a remote VM hosted in the cloud. So the main disadvantage was I could only drive one external monitor, and the aspect ratio was weird. So there would be these kind of black bars down the side, and I got it kind of dialed in. I used RDP, so I used a jump desktop to RDP into the VM. So I was running VS Code. I was doing everything I was doing on a Pi, but there was some latency, right? Because you mentioned that in the introduction, because you're round tripping every mouse click, right? So it's not quite. And then the mouse support on the iPad. I mean, the pencil is amazing, right? But mouse support's a little. It's gotten a lot better in the later releases, but it's not quite there. Now on RDP, it's quite good. The Jump developers have done a lot of great work. That's a $20 application, by the way, but highly recommend it. And then I used Blink SSH for SSH. I used let's see, Buffer as a text editor, Git Journal, and then Ulysses for all my Markdown. And then there's hundreds. On the iPad, right? I mean, it's just like on Linux, right? You've got the same number of apps. You just go to the App Store, type in whatever you want, chances are somebody's got something. And that's the same kind of advantages. I just pick it up, go anywhere with it. All my stuff's right there. Because on my Pi, on my iPad, I don't have anything that I it's just a thin client, right? I'm up and running in another 5 minutes once all my data is in the cloud, it's backed up, right? And I'll get into that in my next meeting. But yeah, I mean, I have folders on my iPad. I have, I've got all my business apps. I've got, WooCommerce, WordPress. I've got my analytics. I've got, some business all kinds of stuff. I've got Twitch on here, right? So I could stream. I mean, yeah. I mean, there's a lot, and that was the other big reason I went to the Surface, and I'll get to that in the next section. I'll talk about streaming and some of the things I wasn't able to really do for the Pi or the iPad. Brad and Josh, you guys have any questions? I've been talking a lot about stuff.
Not off the top of my head, but I'm sure I'll pipe in whenever I'm curious.
Okay, cool. Let's see, I know you have, yeah. So yeah, I mean, the iPad is. Go ahead.
Range model, Charles. Like, if you were to pick up an iPad here or Surface, what's like the size or the processor? What would you pick as like a mid-range?
So I have the iPad Mini 5th gen. I think Apple's released one update since then. I'm not sure. I bought that in 2019, and it is still just as fast and snappy as it was on day one. Websites run, so I don't think you need anything particularly powerful, especially if you're using it, for heavy content consumption, heavy content creation, a lot of emailing, a lot of web stuff, writing. I do a lot of writing on it, things like that. So I mean, that's about $300. Just if you just get the iPad without the mouse and everything. I don't think you need a Pro. I really don't see. I mean, I've had a lot of people ask me that and be surprised that I didn't use the Pro. If you're already in like a USB-C world in your house or your office, that is one of the nice things about the Pro is it is USB-C. Same with the Surface, right? So, and the world is moving to that, but we're really, I think, about 18 months into where USB-C is pretty much the standard. So I think, and there's still some issues with USB-C cables and display, so I would stay away from it for now. I would stick with just a regular iPad, either the full size or the mini. For me, I tried both. I didn't like the form factor of the full size, especially because I was plugging the mini into an external monitor. It was really nice to just be able to sit pretty much anywhere, and have this small device with a keyboard and trains, planes, coffee shops, right? As far as the Surface, I've been extremely happy with the Laptop Go. So they have a tablet called the Surface Go. I tried that. I didn't like the keyboard. The Surface Laptop Go, I love the keyboard. I love the screen, and it's about the size of a full-size iPad. But because I don't have to hold it up, because it supports itself. Of course, there's cases for the iPad, right? But that have a keyboard folio. So yeah, I mean, don't buy the Pros. They're not worth it. I mean, unless your work entails where you don't have a backend server environment, right? Then absolutely get the Pro. If you need to run VMs, you need all this kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, and you can't like go on DigitalOcean because of the client restrictions or something. Yeah, absolutely get a Pro model. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you.
Awesome.
I have one.
Yeah.
What do you think against or for if you get that iPad but you have a phone account with it, or is it better to just have it with Wi-Fi enabled on it?
Right. Yeah, I mean, man, Wi-Fi is everywhere now. I mean, you can get a hotspot from your carrier, right? I mean, having it all in one device and just always work. I mean, yeah, that's fantastic. But I noticed, like, for example, like I wanted to purchase a iPad from T-Mobile, and they don't sell them without data, right? And so you're forced to buy a data plan. So I had to go to Best Buy, because I was buying like multiple phones and iPads at one point, and so yeah, that was kind of a pain. But I mean, it is certainly really nice, I think, to just have an always-on connection. But man, Wi-Fi is so prevalent now. I mean, it's really hard to find a place that doesn't have anything more than just a captive portal. Certainly in most cities. So you know, if you are doing a lot of work where you need to test mobile responsiveness, then definitely get the bigger plan, right? Although often for that, you should probably have 3 or 4 hotspots and just pair to different ones. So yeah, I can't think of any use case to have a cellular plan built into the iPad. Yeah, I can't think of it. Yeah. So the next question you've got here is, what are some things to keep in mind when choosing the best machine to work from? I think I've covered that a little bit, but I'll put a fine point on it. So really, in my mind, it comes down to, do you need something that's pretty much just going to drive a couple displays, have a nice keyboard, and run your editor and do some light building, or do you need like a full blown, backend stack that you need to run on the local machine? Because if you do, then you're going to want something a little more powerful. If you've got access to DigitalOcean, OVH, pick your AWS, pick your favorite provider. I don't think you need anything particularly powerful. You want it to have good responsiveness. You want it to have solid graphics. And again, this is all assuming that you have a machine set up explicitly for work, development, sysadmin, these kind of things, right? That you have a separate gaming rig or something like that. I mean, if you've just got one machine, that's a different question. So this is just assuming that you have a machine that you only use for work, whether that's your day job, whether that's your free, whatever it is. That when you open this up, you've got your email, you've got your browser, you've got your editor, and that's where you live. Maybe you've got Spotify or something, but essentially, you're not gaming on it, you're not, things like that. And then for me, going with the Surface really was for streaming purposes. Streaming is extremely GPU intensive because I stream my desktop, and the Pi just could not keep up. It would stutter, just could not keep up. So I went to the Surface specifically for that because I stream my desktop almost all the time. And I'll usually stream into Discord, and I'll also stream out to YouTube and Twitch. That's 3 RTMP streams. The Pi just couldn't do it. Surface handles it no problem, and that's just a difference of an Intel processor versus an ARM, and a fairly low end ARM, mid range ARM, I think on the Pi. Yeah. What are some things to keep in mind when choosing the best accessories? Well, therein is a whole world of forum posts, right? And debates. I think it comes down to what are you looking to get at? Are some people, they go for years on like some standard Dell keyboard. That's fantastic. They like the little flip down, that kind of angled form factor. I mean, I can't stand that personally. I need a more low profile keyboard. It's kind of lower to the, because this is, I'll hold it up in front of the camera so you guys can see it. I mean, it's basically, let's see. If you all ever seen like a Mac keyboard, let me try to, so that's, it's very, very low profile, as you can see. It's got this, because what happens with the other, if you only have those little arms, flip downs, it kind of flip flops. So having that solid, and it also got a year of battery life. I never wanted to have to worry about the battery. I bought it last October 2019 or 2020, I guess. Yeah, and I've only had to charge it once, and it's actually got a separate battery for the backlight as well. And then the mouse. I mean, I've always liked the Apple Magic Mouse. I've used one for 10 years probably. So I'm on the 3rd gen now. I had the 2nd gen. I don't know, whatever it is. I think headphones are a huge other area of debate. For me, I use over the ear. I can't stand in ear. When I'm sitting at desk, when I'm out and about, I really like the AirPods. And again, all this stuff is, it's Bluetooth. It's very standardized. The Raspberry Pi Bluetooth stack is a little bit. It's about, it's not as good as it could be. Same thing like if you've got like a Dell laptop with a standard, if you don't put Dell's drivers on, if you're just using Microsoft's Bluetooth stack, you're going to have some issues, right? So There's just kind of, with the Surface, right? It's more of an appliance. I mean, it's running Windows 10, you can do whatever you want with it, but everything works out of the box. The Bluetooth is amazing. I don't have to do anything to tweak it. Because again, Microsoft, just like Apple, right, has the full software hardware integrated solution. And I mean, it also, like, to the accessories question, I mean, if you've got, maybe you don't, maybe you just have a room in a place or something, whatever, maybe you just have the Surface, the keyboard is very good. The screen is very good. If you don't have a desk or something, you don't have the option for external keyboard and monitors, the Surface and the iPad both have phenomenal built-in screens. Of course, Surface is built-in keyboard, and the iPad, you're probably going to want an external keyboard, but you can get those pretty compact. Yeah, so that's all the questions you had, at least written down. I am open for more. Oh, you're muted, Tim. There you go.
Yeah. I was listening and trying to think of kind of my personal use case, and I kind of see like the Raspberry Pi probably for a minor, because us being developers, we have the financial means to buy high-end systems. And are there any creative uses of the Raspberry Pi that you use or have heard of? Like, can you set up a server at home, and then run it to do something? I don't know. I haven't thought thoroughly, but
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, that's a whole other. I will go into that in depth. I mean, I'll talk about it a little bit here, and then I'm definitely going to discuss it quite in depth at my next presentation. But yes, no, absolutely, that is a fantastic use. All kinds of like music servers, home automation. I mean, yeah, there's all kinds of stuff that you can do on the Pi that's really slick. And again, it's basically just like it's just like DigitalOcean, except it's in your house, right? And then at that point, it's even more abstracted out. Yeah, no, for again, depending on the use case of what you need in front of you, in your lap or on your desk. Yeah, I mean, sometimes like if you do video editing or something, yeah, I mean, you're going to need a pretty powerful system for sure. But yeah, I mean, and that's actually what my Pi is doing now. Is it's now serving in my server room, running various functions, which I will. I need to put some materials documentation together on that, but it's it's various home automation and other workloads. Yeah.
And I imagine the power supply doesn't eat very much juice, so it's
Exactly.
more efficient than running like a regular, I don't know, desktop at home or something.
Yeah,
How
absolutely.
to track that?
Oh yes, extensively, and I have dashboards, and I will be covering all of that and how I selected which hardware. Oh yeah, absolutely. And why I'm putting in solar panels to lower my power bill. Yeah, all that. Yes, all that's coming very soon to a Zoom meeting near you. Yes. Yeah, no, the Pi is a fantastic Linux box for but yeah, because as soon as you go headless, you don't have to worry about the GPU overhead. I mean, then yeah, it's I mean, you just start Docker pulling, whatever you want, right, and boom, you're up and running with, I mean, probably 100 different things in like a couple months. Oh, I want to play with this thing, I want to this dashboard, this whatever, right, and then you can attach like a Zigbee radio, which is the standard for like all the home automation stuff, and then put some temperature sensors around, and you want to pull into Prometheus and yeah, no, that's definitely a fantastic use case for that system. And it's also a great way to learn Linux, if you're not comfortable with it, right, is just set that up there, mess around with it. I mean, I always recommend people start with DigitalOcean because it's easy to revert, right? You mess something up, take a snapshot. Can't do that with the Pi, right? I mean, if you mess up, you got to reinstall. But sometimes that's also going to teach you to maybe be a little more careful next time, right? So I knew a guy who wrote some backup scripts to and he had like 10 or 12 SD cards you would rotate through and kind of set, because he did a lot of virtualization in x86 world. You can't really do that on a Pi. So yeah, no, I think there's a lot of other use cases. I mean, especially if you like want to run a web app, you static site, I mean, all kinds of stuff, right? You can do, and then have maybe get two Pis, right? One for your desk, and then they use the monitors, and one as a server, something like that. and then it's the exact same hardware on both ends. So you could test, do your dev on your desktop and then run it on your server Pi, something like that. A lot of people do that actually. Yeah, that's a very common use case. Because today it's almost certain that whatever you're developing on is not what you're running on, right?
Very cool. Guys, do you have any other questions? Anything that Charles maybe didn't go over that y'all would be interested in?
So, Charles, you mentioned you just kind of use it as like a desktop running VS Code, right? For your for work. What's like the most intense sort of work thing that you can do on a Raspberry Pi?
That's a great question. Let's see. Well, I've run Blender on it. I've done some renders. I've run KiCad, which is like an electronic design automation tool. I've run, yeah, I mean, most of what I was doing was VS Code and like a bunch of SSH sessions. Various Rust tools, utilities, things like that. Nothing too heavy really. Just a fairly standard, code, git push, test workflow. I think, streaming would probably have been the most intense thing. Like I said, I did struggle with that. But I was also trying to push 3 streams off of a decent GPU, but certainly not the best. Yeah, I mean, I didn't do any video editing on it. I mean, I loaded some stuff up, I played around, but I didn't do too much. Yeah, so that's a good question. I mean, certainly I think maybe once you start getting beyond a fairly standard dev sysadmin email browsing workflow, yeah, you could certainly start to have some issues. Absolutely. And mostly those are going to be either program issues, right? Something doesn't run, or they're going to be IO issues, right? If you're trying to do a lot of heavy, because an SD card is only you can only push it so far because it's a serial interface. So with the USB 3 and the USB drive, you can go pretty far. I mean, at that point, you'd probably start running into RAM or CPU limits. I never ran into RAM issues. CPU always stayed pretty low, and I would run full blown Firefox, 10, 12 windows on multiple virtual desktops, 5 or 6 tabs per window, and it handled that really well. So, assuming a browsing heavy, editing heavy, plus your standard, I would run Spotify on it, right, and stuff like that. So, yeah, for decently busy daily driver, it worked very well. Beyond that, I didn't stress it too much.
Yeah, that's pretty much all I use my computer for.
Yeah, I think most people. Yeah, exactly, right. A lot of browsing, a lot of coding, a lot of probably some email like sysadmin, maybe streaming, YouTubers. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And I used this really cool software called I can't remember the name of it now. I'll find it in the chat. But when you boot it up, it lets you select between OS 10, OS 9, Windows XP, Windows 10, a couple other options. It was really cool. So you could just select a different environment every day if you wanted to. And I mean, the way they did the emulation was, I mean, when I showed people screenshots, they thought I was running OS 10 on a Raspberry Pi. I mean, it was really well done.
Oh wow.
And same thing with the one. Yeah, I'll find it and put a link in it. It's I can't remember the name, but it's a phenomenal package. The guys that do it are very good graphics people. I'll just say that because it is incredibly well executed. And then they document like the 27 different pieces they had to put together to make it work. I mean, all the icons, like everything is just. I mean, it's a straight clone. It's pretty scary actually how good it is. So that's, I think, one of the advantages if you feel like kind of working in a different environment that day, you have that option.
Right, definitely. For cheap.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah, I was looking at some ideas. I just wanted to share. I'll post this link as well, but looks like you can do a network attached storage, and the main
Mhm.
advantage is again, low power consumption, so you can have your own server and stuff. I mean, you can pay for cloud and all of that, but when you run it yourself, you're more in control.
It's also a lot faster because you're just pushing it over the local network. So it's really fast.
Yeah, and some intercom systems, um, some IoT stuff. Yeah, it's really cool stuff. I probably have to pick that one just to mess around with it.
Yeah, I've got a Pi doing a badge reader with a door control, and then also doing GPS for time, really high accuracy time. And yeah, I'll be going through all that, and I think hopefully inspiring everyone to build their own little home or apartment data centers, because I think that's just such a fun thing to do.
That is kind of cool. I have one at home that I haven't done anything with, and that makes me want to try to connect it to my AC as another sensor. I have one of those uh I guess internet AC unit piece, whatever it's called.
Right.
I have one sensor right now, but I would love to be able to make the second sensor for it if I have the pieces and parts for it here at home.
Yeah.
Yeah. I bought these standardized. This is the basic kit on how to use a Raspberry Pi.
Oh yeah. I remember that. That's
It
right.
is, I
Yeah.
think it was like 20 bucks or 15 bucks on Amazon. And I've yet to pull it out of the box, but I think this can be kind of cool to play with it and see what I can build with it. I think it's fun.
Yeah, I mean, computing has become so accessible and so small. I mean, it literally fits in the palm of your hand, and it's a completely standardized. I mean, that's really why. I mean, there's a ton of options, right? You start researching Raspberry Pi, you start reading forum posts, you start hearing about the orange Pi and the banana Pi and the blah 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 blah. But they're all either, you can't order them, or the OS they run is outdated, or they don't. I mean, it's. But the Pi is an appliance. It's the standard Linux, in my opinion. You can buy it, set it up, and you know that every how-to you read, I mean, assuming that it's not completely out of date or something, will be, will work. And I think there's a huge amount of value in that when you're trying to work, right? It's like, okay, I want to just have a Linux box that I could just do, git clone, I can do Docker pull, I can do, npm, whatever, right? Boom. And you just know it's going to work, and you don't have to fiddle around with it. I mean, you're up and running in like, I don't know, 90 seconds. Because I mean, you literally just plug the, however long it takes you to download the OS, right? Which is pretty small, it shouldn't take that long. You put it on the card, you boot it up, you say, okay, here's my Wi-Fi. It asks you what country, and literally in 90 seconds, you're sitting at a Linux desktop with two screens, right? That you can say, okay, boom, open a shell. All right, start typing, apt get install, blah, blah, blah. Boom, that's it, right? And I think there's immense value in that, versus trying to hack something together that may or may not be, and also the ability to just pick that OS 10 or Windows, so whatever you're coming from, boom, you've got it there, right? So it eases the transition. Yeah.
That's all exciting. Does anybody else have questions, guys, for Charles? Anything else that you'd be interested in learning about? I don't know about y'all, but it sounds like it's raining outside of my house right now.
I heard it was supposed to, yeah.
Yeah. Well, if that's all the questions we have for today, we can close it up a little early. Yes, Brad. All right, did you unmute?
So earlier you had mentioned about putting our names out there for job availability and whatnot. Do I just give you the elevator pitch, or?
Please.
Yeah.
Elevator pitch. Well, I am a front end developer. I've been spending about the last year developing firstly developing a software that visualizes AI on proteins, and then just building a React site around that sort of with React and Python and Docker that ties together the AI with the visualization software, and then just the basic front end. And yeah, I work with one other guy on this, and we're very nearly approaching the release of this. And then after that, I'm looking for jobs, essentially, depending on the buzz around the site. But yeah.
No, that's really cool. Is it something we could check out right now already? Or is there like a starter site or like a coming soon site or something like that?
Uh Not really. I mean, there's version 1.0, which is just the original version, which is live. It's a pretty basic site. It probably wouldn't make much sense if you looked at it, just be like, neat, that's a form. I mean, I probably have it on my I don't, but you know, I could quickly bring it up and run it and show you guys around a little bit if you want.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, let me
Make it a
just
co-host.
Docker compose up.
Go for it. Yeah, and this is Brad, this is what we do here. It's if you have something cool to share with the group, or you want advice, or you want feedback, or if you just want to say, hey, look at what I did. That's the point of this.
Absolutely.
Absolutely
Yep.
the point of this group. We're here to learn cool new things and see what other people are up to.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I just spent the last hour doing, right? Just showing you guys, hey, here's how I set up my environment. Here's trade-offs. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you using a GPU backend on this, Brad?
It's for the backend. So you said a GPU backend?
Yeah, to do the protein folding and all that.
You know what? So the folding is already done.
Okay, you're analyzing the data output.
Yeah, I have been thinking about getting because Google just open sourced their folding algorithm, or their folding AI.
Okay.
They just open sourced. I don't know if you guys knew that, but
I do not.
that was really cool. That's their AlphaFold, and just a
Oh yes.
yeah, just a quick, like, if you don't know what AlphaFold is, you essentially give it the sequence of amino acids, or what? Yeah, exactly. And then it by the sequence it can fold it. So it would be essentially akin to something like giving a VS Code a line of letters, and then it would just fold it into Python or JavaScript code. So it's pretty cool what they have, and they just open sourced it, which is even cooler. So I was thinking about adding that to the site, but the visualization is done with, and like the 3D is done with 3JS and GraphQL, or no, not GraphQL, WebGL. Let me see. I just switched branches, so
Also, if this is proprietary, I can stop the live feed and the recording if that's
it's not really proprietary. I don't think I'm gonna be really showing any code.
okay.
This is working. Okay, it didn't work. Like I said, I just switched over branches, so let me just switch back.
So something neat I'm working on right now is I just learned about Nexjs and using that for with React
Right.
for the front end to use that to do server side rendering of my React and be able to input like the SEO information around that to make the site serpable better with Google and whatnot. I'm building just a little standard template or page or whatever, just a landing page to test this out and just to experiment with this. It's kind of cool. I know I don't think it's that old, but it's kind of neat. Something I'm playing with right now.
Yeah, I've definitely read a lot about Next.js, and it's definitely cool. With the SEO stuff, I was about to make a Next.js site, kind of have like the framework set up, but I never got around to doing it because I just got focused on this website. Okay.
So is this like a startup you're building, or is it like for a client, or?
Yeah, essentially startup.
Nice.
Yeah, I moved out. Yeah, about the time I moved to Austin, my buddy was like, "Hey, like, build this for me." So I
Nice.
built it, and then, well, still building it. So let's see. Should I share my screen?
Yeah, if you want to, I made you a co-host. You should be able to share.
Okay, cool. I go back to Zoom. Let me figure out sharing. Which
I'm gonna
one?
say, James, that site that I linked, that's built in Nexjs. If you want to check out
The Icarus
it's-
one.
it's- yeah, the Icarus one.
Okay.
It's a little bit. So it's that one. I think it might be another project. But, I can share with you later.
Okay.
So yeah,
Nice.
can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So the picture behind it is just kind of essentially what it does. And we won't look at the AI part of it because I don't really do any of the AI stuff. But so this is the visualization site, and let's see this. I believe this. Well, this is actually a kind of a new enzyme. And there was actually, I think, a paper just released on it. And so this enzyme degrades PETase. So it's PET, PET.
Mm-hmm.
So they found this enzyme outside of a water bottle plant, and then through these are AI predictions on it, and y'all probably won't know what any of this stuff really means, but I mean, neither do I. I just do the front end on it. But yeah, you can just kind of click on it. And so like a protein engineer can click on it. And so red obviously means like, hey, look at me. And and let's see, I kind of have Zoom in the way, but this will tell you like, okay, so this is a serine. And the AI says, if you're looking in the top right, says this is a serine, wild type AA, WTAA, and then predicted amino acid is a THR. I don't know what that is, but and yeah, it has a probability of 66% that it should be changed. And so yeah, the protein engineers play around with this AI, and they change spots here and there. And
So what's this is what's the back end for this? Is like an API that you had, or some sort of data stream that you then visualize? Like, how do you build this?
So yeah, this is actually embedded. So I started with the NGL library, and that is it's getting to be a little bit old, but it's just one of the protein visualization softwares, and so there's a few of them out there, like NGL and Molestar. Those are kind of like the same people who make those, and then there's some other ones that I can't think of off the top of my head. But yeah, so the protein data comes from RCSB, which is a protein database, and it just has all the protein files, which are 3-dimensional files, right? And then this whole thing is built on top of the NGL library. Essentially, I just took like a somewhat similar technology and then just tweaked it and was able to get it to do this. A little bit of back and forth with the creators, and then
It looks like you've got all your layers and stuff on the left there, right? You can check things on and off, turn off different.
So I can kind of show you those. So let's go back to this one. So so should be able to just kind of you can look at this is water. You can look at the label, so it'll tell you which number it is. You can pick a specific one if you're like, oh, I want to look at
zoom in.
Yeah, I want to see specifically. I'm trying to remember which ones were like popular, but it doesn't really matter. Like I want to look at 193, and so it'll just bring you to 193. And then over here you have all the interactions. Like, oh, whoops! I clicked on the black space. I should probably do something about that, but.
So this is something you're gonna like try to sell to like labs and stuff to use as like a interactive tool, or what's the plan? Nice.
Probably to like maybe pharmaceutical companies, or it's a good bug. I just found it, but probably pharmaceutical companies or labs or people like that, people who do protein engineering. Actually, this particular protein was released in a paper to Exxon. So whoever wants it can get it,
Nice.
So I guess Exxon's trying to cover their traces with the plastic eating enzymes.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, well, before we get fined, we better start,
Mm-hmm.
Right. So but the protein space is very versatile. Once this is released, kind of just put the word out on LinkedIn and show people what it does. But and we can just switch proteins real quick, probably. I don't remember which protein this is, but it does something with DNA. That's what the green is there, is DNA. And so you can just kind of switch easily, go back and forth. I want to, because right now the site's pretty basic. Other than that, I kind of want to redesign the front page at some point. This will probably be released as 2.0, and then maybe 3.0 at some point we'll have like the option to fold, the option to predict, and the option to visualize.
Nice.
And hopefully it could get a dashboard for the users, right? But other than that, so the predict page, just typical. You can just choose you can either choose the protein file or just type it in, the protein code, and then that will send it to the AI backend, and then that will run and that will run the protein code and whatnot.
Nice.
And do predictions on it. And then other than that, just that's basically the pages of it right now.
That's pretty cool, honestly.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I would say, if you're looking for those connections to help with the selling or just business, definitely check out the Capital Factory, or you can look at any other like accelerator program.
Founders Institute's a really good one.
Yeah,
just to get the word out about it.
Yeah, but this looks really cool. Honestly, this is pretty neat.
Yeah, it's really slick.
Yeah, this was like my first JavaScript project, and it was
a heck of a portfolio piece.
Yeah, I'm hoping so, because it hasn't been released yet, and I've been applying to some jobs, and I think they look at the original one, and they're like, the original one is just it's literally just this form, like that's it. You're like, hey, here you go, disclaimer, type it in, and then it emails you a CSV file. And then what I've done, because a lot of like protein engineers are older now and they're just not very technologically advanced. So they're not going to sit there and like go through the CSV and like that makes it pretty difficult to sit there and go through it. It's just looking at an Excel sheet essentially. And then this makes it a lot easier to just, oh, okay, I want to change it probably here, right? Like this looks kind of weird. Change that up over there. So yeah,
Nice.
hopefully get this out within them. Well, it's got to be out. We kind of have deadlines on it now, so we got to get it out kind of within a week or two, and then start spamming people on LinkedIn.
Very cool.
Yeah, that's really neat. Yeah, so I shared our link to our Slack. If you feel free to join if you're not in there yet, and you can let people know a little bit about what you're working on, what you're looking for. And then feel free to also join, ask us questions, and we can hopefully connect you with people that can help you out or maybe point you in the right direction if need be also.
In the chat or where?
Yeah, I shared it in the chat. But if
Okay,
you
Slack.
haven't left your LinkedIn yet, please feel free to do that also, and also feel free to share to save the chat window itself, get all that information, get those links. We will be sharing them again later. So if you don't get a chance to save it.
Cool, appreciate it.
Yes. Let me read that link in.
Want me to go back to your screen? Oh, sharing. Okay, cool. Got it. You already did it.
Perfect. All right. So I can take over the screen again. Let me figure out where it's at. All right. So yeah, that's all we have for today, guys. Please, unless anybody else has anything else they'd like to share. Jonathan, I know you're a little bit late to the party today, but we did live stream on YouTube today. And we'll also have the video and all the information and notes on our website at a later time, probably like later this week.
Yeah, James, I'll send you an email tomorrow with it'll probably be a little bit better than chat, and I'll put some categories and stuff on it, and I think that'd be better. So I'll shoot that to you tomorrow morning.
Okay, perfect. And we'll share that information with everybody.
Yeah.
And also we'll typically drop this inside Slack also. So there's multiple options and ways to find this information, which is all about it. It's being inclusive and being able to get that information out to everybody. So, all right. Tim, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, I think I'm good. I'll share more next time. And I know I've been talking a little bit about the initiative thing, but we were in private alpha, so our squad just finished the first expedition, is what we call it. I'll have more information next time.
Okay, cool. All right, then without further ado, we'll go ahead and close it up today, guys. Thanks,
Sounds good.
Charles.
Thanks,
for
Charles.
Absolutely.